Okay. Okay. This evening, our topic is health and the mind and the key to healing the body. And for those who are new to our sessions, I am David Homer. I'm a doctor of naturopathic medicine um, in the health and wellness arena for 30 years, clinical practice for 25 years. I retired 4 years ago from clinical practice. And now my work is from a different perspective. I call it biopsychosocial, biopsychospiritual approach to where I'm working with people more on from the inner well-being. Um, and so this evening, we're going to be looking at aspects of the mind as it relates to health and healing the body. And I'm going to begin by looking at, I like to begin with the World Health Organization definition of health. It gives us a good context to begin with. And health is a state of complete physical, mental, spiritual, social, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. I inserted the word spiritual there. That's not in their original definition. Without the spiritual component, I don't think the definition is complete. And by inserting spiritual there, that by any does not by any means indicate a religious concept of any type. Just the understanding that we are vibrational and that we're energetic beings, which the source of which is our spiritual nature. And so, as we get into this, I want to broaden our perspective from the way we are accustomed to thinking about health, and that health is usually just about the body. That is deeply ingrained into our subconscious to look at health from that perspective. But even using this definition, that health is a state. It is a state of being, and that state of being encompasses every dimension of our lives physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially. Therefore, when we think about health, we must think about the entirety of our life. And that's important for us to do that because if we just keep it within the context of the narrow confines of just how our body feels and functions, then we are going to be largely exposed as to what contributes to dis-ease. And we'll talk about that and how we can prevent, how we can recover from. Also, not to think of health as the absence of disease or infirmity. It's not what is the absence of, it is what it is the presence of. And many people think that if they don't feel sick or have no symptoms, that they're in a state of health. And that type of thinking can eventually take us to a place where we will end up becoming sick somewhere down the road. And usually age gets the blame for it. But health is about our entire life. And so we need to look at health from this perspective as we move forward and as you move forward in your own life. Henceforth, we should think of health as our whole life. It is being physically strong, mentally clear, emotionally stable, spiritually aligned, socially connected, and financially empowered. Every aspect that gives meaning and value to our life encompasses this state of being we call health. And therefore, the life that we might be chasing, whatever we prioritize as being valuable and meaningful, purposeful for us, understand that health is the foundation of it all. And truly improving your health is the most significant investment you can ever make because every area of our life runs through health. That I wanted to put a stamp on that thinking about health, we must think about every dimension of our lives. Because we tend not to do that, we have a growing global pandemic that is sweeping the planet. The statistics are increasing every year. The World Health Organization calls it the global burden of disease. And if you went to their website, you will see that they project the next decade that the figures are going to increase. I personally find that quite alarming because we are continually increasing in knowledge, in know-how, in technology, yet disease and the incidences of them are continuing to increase annually. Something evidently is wrong in the way that we're approaching it. And if we were at least on the right track, we should be seeing at least a reduction rather than an increase in it. And so understanding health in its fullness, we also will come to the realization that this ease is really not the problem. It doesn't matter what you call it, and it doesn't matter at what age it may happen. When there is disease in the body, that should not be the focus, because that is just the outcome of a deeper underlying problem. And that's what we want to more focus on, is we want to deal with the underlying causes as to why we develop these lifestyle induced chronic diseases that is overtaking the planet. Mental health disorders are now rapidly moving up, and it's becoming more and more rampant. We are aging faster, there's more mental and cognitive decline, there's more lifestyle diseases that's increasing. Something is not right, and we need to address this from a more holistic perspective. And so I want to encourage you that as we look at health in this more holistic manner regarding our entire life, that we need to take a step back and look at how we value our life. I say that because 25 years in the clinical practice, in working with people, we often take our life for granted. And when we say take life for granted, we know that we're taking health. If we say take health for granted, we're taking our life for granted. And why is that important? Because anything that we don't recognize the value of, we will take it for granted, or we are going to neglect it in some way. And that's generally the perspective that we have. There's a reason why we generally become complacent about our life and our lifestyles generally, that leads us down a road where life becomes a struggle. So while we might be living longer, as statistics tell us, we are not living healthier, but also we're not thriving as we are meant to and capable of. Most of us today, people that I interact with, we are striving, we're surviving, we're trying to make ends meet, and we're trying to get by. I'm saying to us that if we truly approach health in the correct context, that we will not have to endure a life of a lesser quality. We will be able to tap and unlock the potential that we all possess to live a much better quality of life and a better standard of living. Because of the way we have been approaching it, 3 out of every 4 of us on this call, we're going to end up leaving this planet one day after suffering for many years with some lifestyle related chronic disease. And this is not the way life is meant to live. And so, understanding the fullness of it, we no longer want to perceive or address disease as though it is the problem. We understand it's just the outcome. To do that is like trying to mop up water from a leaking pipe without fixing the pipe itself. This evening, we're going to talk about how we can fix the pipe, because we can use different things and different means and different methods to mop up the floor, and it may stay dry for a moment, dry for a time, but the pipe is going to leak again. It might leak in a different place, it might leak in a different month, but we are going to be chasing illnesses around in circles as the years go by, until one of them becomes so chronic in our bodies that it will begin to reduce our quality of life. Along our journey, nothing robs us of quality of life and our potential more than living in a way that feeds or nurtures sickness and disease. And so we're going to be looking at how we're going to fix the pipe. I'm sharing this quote from Thomas Edison, which most of us, if not all of us, will be familiar with, who created the light bulb as we know it. He made a statement back in the 1800s, and he said, The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patients in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. I want to emphasize, because we're going to be looking at that this evening, of no medicine, using no medicine, because we understand the cause and the prevention of disease. And when we do, there is a way that how we can live disease free. And if we are ill in any way, we have the capacity and the capability of being able to live a disease-free life without all the medicines. Now, don't get me wrong, the use of medicines is necessary, it's needed in many cases. That external intervention, until we can, in our own personal growth and development and our own understanding of how to employ and engage the capacity, the potential that we possess, along our journey of learning that, we need the external support. And so there is a place for that, but I want us to really open our minds to see and accept the capabilities that we have to live truly a disease-free life. I also want to talk about technology, because Thomas Edison created a technology that changed the world, and until today, we are still using the technology he's created, and it's global. I want to talk about the technology because technology has enhanced how we are able to work in the healthcare arena, how we are able to monitor, how we are able to diagnose, how we are able to influence biological change using technology. I want to talk about a technology later on that I want to encourage you to seriously take a look at, because it is literally life transformative. It uses no medicine, no substances, no ingredients, no frequencies, no equipment, no pills, no powders. It uses none of that, yet it taps in to what inherently exists within the human system for self-healing and self-repair. And so that is the focus of where we're going to be going this evening. This is all wholly possible because healing is an inherent capacity we have. I call it healing by design. And when you look at our whole being, spirit, soul, and body, together, there's an innate intelligence that drives a creative flow that's encoded into the human system that helps our bodies to be able to heal continuously and heal from literally any and everything. And so we can see this flow. It's all throughout the entire universe, all throughout nature. This creative flow is encoded into creation. If we cut our hair, it grows back. Why does that happen? If we break a bone, we can set it and it will mend itself back. If we get a cut, it is going to immediately start a process of mending and healing. That happens whether it is a human being, an animal, a plant. This is a creative flow that flows through life. And that it doesn't just happen when we get a cut. It happens at the cellular level with everything that goes out of order. If a problem develops within the human body and it is not being healed, it's because something is blocking or resisting or obstructing that creative flow, that innate healing capacity that we all possess. Something is disrupting it. Something is obstructing it. Something is resisting it. And we're going to learn what that is, and we're going to learn how we can work with that. There's also something in medicine called spontaneous remission. Some people refer to it as spontaneous healing. That is where people recover from terminal and life-threatening conditions without any particular type of intervention or any particular course of treatment. And it happens by these individuals, and there are tens of thousands of recorded cases. There are books written about this, so you can do the research, where because of the terminal nature of their condition, people, they begin a journey of going inward, questioning life, looking at what matters in life, questioning how they've been going about life, looking at themselves, and it takes them on a journey of introspection and reflection to where they change their whole paradigm of thinking and perspective on life. And in that journey, the conditions begin to go away. We see this innate capacity in what we know in medicine to be the placebo effect, which there are lots of research and documented cases about the placebo effect. Now, even though that may be treated in more of a negative context in medicine, I just want to highlight that we all possess this innate capacity. So if you went on to the National Institute of Health website or PubMed, there is a lot of information there that shows the clinical trials that have been done to show how the body is capable of rebuilding its own cartilage, removing tumors, healing itself. Just you can give there are cases where you can just give a saline injection to people who have debilitating arthritic conditions, and the pain will reduce significantly, the stiffness go away, and they're able to function normally, thinking and believing that they just got a good medicine that's going to keep them free of pain and stiffness and help them to have mobility for the next 6 months. And the research shows that that's exactly what happens. I'm saying all that to say that encoded within the human system is a capacity. But that capacity is not just for us to heal and repair our bodies. That same capacity is to be able to live at a level of life where we don't struggle and fight up with life. Life is meant to be an effortless flow when we understand how that works. I want to just share for those who may be Christian minded that even within scripture, you can see an evidence of this. There is this incident of the issue, and there are many incidences of like this within the scriptures, where there was this lady with this woman with the issue of blood for 12 years, been to all the doctors, couldn't get any help, and she thought to herself, if I could just touch the hem of his garment. Many of you may know this account, and she went against all the cultural norms, and when she did, and when Jesus turned to her, he said, your faith has made you whole. Now, without getting into all the depths of that, what Jesus was saying is that he didn't say I or the power of God, or that he said the catalyst for it was in you. And I'm just highlighting that to say we all possess this. We just are unaware of it. And now that we might become aware that it is there, we now have to learn how that can be tapped. So the innate potential for us to heal is something that's been known for eons, for millennia, and proponents today that are working with this are seeing remarkable things happen with spontaneous healing by engaging the capacity of our minds, excuse me, by our minds and our hearts and our inner well-being. So when we learn how to work with our inner well-being and understand the rudiments of that, we are able to be able to, and I'll keep saying it because it takes a while for us to really get it, is that not just for our bodies to heal from anything, but for us to be able to engage life from a completely different vantage point that makes life far more effective and far more enjoyable along the way. So I like one of the things that Dr. Bruce Lipton said. He said, the moment you change your perception is the moment you rewrite the chemistry of your body. Now, for my years in clinical practice, one of the things I did is I worked with the blood quite a lot. So I worked with the biochemistry quite a lot. And to me, the chemistry back then was what was influencing everything. So it was always about manipulating the chemistry. But I did see from working with the blood and understanding the science of psychoneuroimmunology, I've seen how people's states of being alter the state of the blood. And so absolutely, what goes on our inner life has a significant impact right down to the cellular level. So just for us, just to drive home the point that while medicine may save our life and help us along a process, we have come to a point in history where we need to begin to look inward and take more responsibility for how we engage life. Not just healing is just one aspect of the improvement, but it improves every other aspect of our life as well. And so just to give a visual of the model, because when we when there's audio and visual, we can remember and we can get greater understanding. As three-dimensional beings of spirit, soul, body, our life flows from the inside out. The very energy, the thing that um, animates our body and sustains it, that life force flows from the inside out. That is the creative order of how it's meant to be. And so our sense of identity, which is in the soul, how we navigate life, the aspects of the soul, I would have narrowed it down to just the mind, thoughts, heart, emotions, and will, the choices we make. This is where we navigate life. This is where we transact and move forward and determine the outcomes of our life. This is the key. This is the bridge between our inner and outer nature. And this is important because what reflects inside the body depends entirely of what's being transacted right here. Now, we have been conditioned and taught from out of the womb, more or less, that we are to live in a particular way, and our minds are conditioned from the outside in, where we invert this flow. And it is pretty much like going against the flow of a river. Life becomes more resistant. Life becomes more of a struggle. Life is not as effortless as when our minds and our hearts are governed by the qualities of our inner well being. When our minds and our hearts are conditioned by societal condition, and our sense of identity is more of the egoic nature, where our reality is governed and our sense of well-being is governed from the outside, we are not going to be able to avoid completely developing sickness and disease, because that is the abnormal flow of life in the wrong direction. And we will know that we are doing this when our sense of well-being is being defined by the outer world. So in other words, if I am going to feel great and good about myself and good about life and how life is going for me, if that is dependent on how circumstances of my life is working, well, then my life is governed by the outside, by the external reality. It means that my mind and my heart has been conditioned by qualities of life that are contrary to my inner life. Now, I'm not going to get into that. I just want us to get the principle that when we flow, and the essence that comes from inside, basically, the essence is love and truth. But when our soul, when the mind is freed by truth and the heart, our emotions is governed by love, when those qualities and all that emanates from that is what forms the bridge from inner to outer, we're going to have homeostasis. Our body is going to reflect that inner state, and that is what spontaneous healing essentially is, and that is what keeps us free of disease. But when our inner well-being, our sense of identity, if it is taken from the conditioning outside, our egoic nature, if that flows from the outside in and our mind and heart is that condition, we end up with a state of inner conflict. It's a conflict between two qualities. That inner conflict completely obscures the fact that we have a spiritual nature, even though we may intellectually acknowledge that it is so. We don't conceptually understand, and more so, do not know how to appropriate it into a living experience or a living reality. But the point is, we will develop an inner conflict when our sense of identity and well-being is calibrated from the outside in. This is what creates what we call stress. And this is important because our state of being is what creates the life that we are experiencing. Whether that life is good, bad, or indifferent, healthy or sick, it doesn't matter. The experience of life itself is created right here on the bridge. And that's where we need to focus. We need to fix the bridge. Our minds, our thought life, our perceptions, our attitudes, etc. Our mind is what connects us to the outside. Our heart is what connects us to the inside. Our heart could also be considered the subconscious mind. That connects us to the inside. But when our heart and mind, when the heart, which connects us to the inside, is configured by the mind, which is influenced from the outside, that's what blocks our sense of inner well-being, our sense of our divine nature, and those qualities don't flow through, and it creates that resistance. And so this is important because we chase life every day. I work with people who we spend thousands of dollars going to courses, going to workshops to try and live a better life. And we get lots of principles, we read our books, and all that is good information, is good knowledge. But the practical application of how we engage this is very important, and that will come in our workshops, which we're going to be introducing a little bit later in the year. But we need to understand the rudiments and the dynamics of how this becomes a daily application so that we can live healthy lives, not just to be free of disease, but to live effectively in every area and on every level. So again, we want to have strong bodies. We want to have clarity of mind. We want to have stability of emotions. We want to have spiritual alignment where when life flows from the inside out, life is effortless. We want to have good, harmonious social connections. And we want to be financially empowered because in this material world, we need to have money in order to be able to live comfortably. And so don't chase the money, chase the inner well-being, and everything else is going to happen. This is important for us to understand because the inner conflict that leads to stress is the number one cause of disease and dysfunction. The statistic from the World Health Organization and other institutions around the globe says that 60 to 80% of people live in a chronic or recurrent state of stress. Up to 90% of doctor visits are stress related. Stress is the basic cause of 75 to 90% of all human illnesses and disease. Over 90% of disease is caused by stress, thought, and belief. So this now has become an issue. This is so rampant, and this is all leads to why we have this global pandemic, because most of the human population on this planet live in this state called stress. So much so that we have become so sensitized to it that we don't even recognize it so much. Additionally, we treat stress as though it's just another disease to be managed, another disease to be controlled, and it's not. We also have the misunderstanding because of we look at stress like the way we look at health, not in the fullness of the context. And so we think stress is what's happening externally as well, because of how our sense of identity is in our physical nature and not in our spiritual nature. And so we think that it's the bills, it's the debt, it is the job, it is the traffic, it's the people I have to deal with, that what's happening outside is what's causing stress. That's not so. Stress is 100% an internal conflict that shapes the way how we interact and interpret life in a way that is disharmonious on the inside. We experience life only on the inside, not on the outside. And so stress is an internal thing. When we have this fractured living where there's a conflict between our inner and outer nature that leads to stress, this is a glimpse of the myriad of ways that we express it, but don't think of it as stress. But I'm sure all of us on the call can identify to this. You see, when we live privately, we are experiencing life one way, but openly we are pretending it's another. That's the fractured life. You cannot avoid looking at life in a particular way and responding in a way that what we're calling stress. It is projecting a positive self-image, but yet we're concerned about what people's opinions of us. It wrecks our lives. It's saying that we value the truth, yet we are not honest to really say how we feel about things. It's when our sense of well-being is defined by outer circumstances. It's wanting to live with self-esteem, which is a good thing, but yet we're always seeking validation. I'm always seeking to fit in. It's saying we want to be healthy, but we never get around to engage in the healthy habits. It's speaking about others in a way we would not want to be spoken of. It's when we think one way, feel another way, but yet we say and do something else. I've asked hundreds of people over the years, do you love yourself? Everybody says, yes, I love myself, but yet we engage in self-destructive habits. It is a fractured way of living. And once we live this way, we will interpret life in a way that it is not the circumstances of life that's causing us stress that leads to illness. It is how we perceive and respond to them based on this internal framework of mindsets that shape our state of being. Stress is 100% wholly internal. What's happening outside is just life happening, which we have no control over, but we have control over what's happening on the inside. And so we don't see life as it is. We only see life as we are, because our internal framework of being is what creates the lens through which we look out into the world and interpret. It creates our perception. So when our thoughts, emotions, words, and actions radiate as a single frequency, in other words, when we are seamlessly whole, that's where that peace is, the opposite of stress. That is where freedom in our minds. And that's where stress comes to an end. This is the journey toward where people experience what they call spontaneous remissions. Coming to a place where you introspect and you go inside and you examine and you arrive at a different place of how you understand yourself and the life and what life means to you, and you engage life from a completely different paradigm. And this is where we want to work towards as our years progress, because not only are we going to function better, live better, but we're going to enjoy a better quality of life and a better standard of living. This experience of life happens one way, through our central nervous system. This is how stress becomes disease. I will give that to you now. The central nervous system, which is the brain and the entire network of nerves throughout our body, together it's called the central nervous system. And it is the bridge between the mind and the body. It is what's being transacted in our inner well-being and how that is being relayed through the body and expressed that way. It all happens through the central nervous system. Now, let me try to make this simple. The central nervous system extends into what is called the autonomic nervous system, which runs everything in our body, more or less. Autonomics meaning that there are trillions of things happening in our body right now that's happening automatically. We're not involved. There are millions of cells dying every minute, millions of neurons being reborn and reformed. There are millions of transactions taking place in our bodies right now, and it's all running automatically. The very energy, the very source that built and organized and formed the body in the womb is what runs it today via the autonomic nervous system. But the autonomic nervous system is divided into two branches. One is called the sympathetic nervous system. That's the one that deals with the stress response. We'll call that the SNS. You could remember it because S is for stress. The sympathetic system, when that is dominant, this is your fight-flight system. This is what has all the stress hormones raging in our bodies. When this is the dominant system that's running, remember, this is the difference between inner and outer. When this is what's dominant, which is the case for 60 to 80% of people that live on the planet, the immune system begins to decline. All kinds of issues begin to develop. This is the number one cause. When the sympathetic system is dominant, it begins a cascade of changes in the body. It promotes oxidation and systemic inflammation, which is the seedbed for all lifestyle diseases. This is where, down to the DNA and premature aging takes place when this system is dominant in our bodies. This is, remember, the central nervous system is it's all linked to how we are experiencing life. And so when this is dominant, disease is unavoidable. Now, we may engage in healthy habits. We may be in the gym, we exercise a lot, we take our supplements, we eat well. That helps to keep it at bay, and it may take longer to reach us. But if we live with this system dominant in our bodies through how we transact life internally, what we call the stress response, it may take longer to get to you, but it will still get to you eventually as we get older. That is the first system. The other system is called the parasympathetic. You can remember this one because it begins with P, and we could think of peace, which is the opposite of distress. This system, when this is dominant, the body goes right into a healing and recovery mode. The body shifts right in. The immune system upregulates. Mind and body comes into harmony. Homeostasis is regained. Optimal function, cellular repair, all the biosystems start to coordinate. When this part of the nervous system is dominant, the body goes into a whole repair response. Now, almost very few people on the planet lives with this system dominant because we all live stressed, because we live how? We live fractured lives. We have this inner conflict, and we have control over that because I'm sure all of us can identify with what I said so far, that we can think one way, but we will say another. We can feel another way, but do something else. We can heal that fracture because it's just the choices that we're going to have to make. Now, here's the interesting thing. The regulatory state of our central nervous system, how that's regulated, we can observe that through brainwave activity. Why? Because brainwave activity, the brain waves, and we measure brain waves with EEGs, the brainwave is a reflection of the state of mind. When we measure our brain waves, we know the state of mind that the person is. And if the brainwave activity is being influenced by negative thoughts and emotions, it shifts the body into the sympathetic dominance. That's the stress response. When brainwave signals or brainwave activity is influenced by positive thoughts and emotions, that brainwave activity shifts the body into parasympathetic dominance. So do you understand that when we measure our brain waves, that's reflecting the state of mind. That determines which system turns on and off. Do we understand that our minds should not be left as wild horses to just fly off? If there's one thing that we should learn to control and gain governance over in our lives, is our state of mind. And there's a process that we can learn, that we can go through. That's all part of our workshops, but we need to gain control, because if our minds are like an uncontrolled wild horse, we're going to end up not just with expressions of illness in our bodies, but I can promise you that we are also struggling with perhaps the relationships in our lives, effectiveness of living, our financial, other areas are going to happen, because they're not all separate things. They all have the same root. You understand? So understand that we can see where we are if we can just look at our brainwave activity. So enough for us to know that disease doesn't happen to us. We're not victims of disease. Disease happens through us. And it's all entirely based on the condition or the state of being that we're in, whether it's governed by our spiritual life or by our external life. That's the long and short of it is. Based on peace, harmony, truth, gratitude, and all things positive, or it's based on things like fear and anger, frustration, resentment, and all the negative things. It's one or the two, but we have the control over it. People say to me, well, what about viruses and bacteria and these organisms that can make you sick? Well, I can tell you from working with the blood for years that these organisms that can contribute to illness, they only can live in a particular environment, and that's an acid medium. If your system is acidic, our blood system and our lymphatic fluids, which are the rivers that nourish and run through our bodies, keep our systems, create the environment inside, they're supposed to be on the alkaline side, not acid. But you can hardly find a person who's not constantly have this overacidity running through their system, and the body's constantly having to try to regulate it to keep us alive, because the human being cannot live with the blood system acid for any length of time. Our body is constantly 24/7 in the space of doing that. And I'm saying that just to say this. One, negative thoughts and emotion creates 5 to 10 times more acidity than a bad diet does. That's why we have to pay attention to this. So we could take all the supplements in the world, we could take all the support in the world, but if we live stressed lives, we may prolong it, but you're not going to avoid it. And so that's where I'm going with this. The other point that I want to make with that is that these organisms that can contribute to illness only thrive in an acid medium. They can't thrive in an alkaline medium. So in essence, we provide an environment for them to live. And when we do that, those organisms can develop right within our bodies. We talked about that in a previous thing. So if we want to unlock the natural flow of this healing potential, we need to learn how to bring our thoughts, emotions, our words, and our actions, the way we live and be, we need to have that as one and the same. And that's a tall order, to think, feel, speak, and act in congruence and such coherence that there is no distinction between them. That is what stops the inner conflict. But that's a tall order because of how we've been conditioned from children. And that's why meditation is the single best habit any human being can learn. Meditation, metacognitive exercise, breath work, getting into more introspective work, exercises, mindfulness techniques. But how many of us really engage that? That's not hard to do. But once we can do that, when we can bring this harmony and this coherence together, that is what restores the harmony between mind body, upregulates the parasympathetic system, and the body goes right into a healing response. Now, we all know, we can face it, that this is not easy to do. And it takes time. And we're too busy just trying to make ends meet these days. But what if, here's the $1,000,000 question. What if we can synchronize our brainwave activity to resemble a state of mind that is in harmony and balance? What do you think would happen? If we can synchronize the brain waves to resemble a state of harmony, then that innate healing capacity will flow. The sympathetic system will upregulate. And the body's natural response to healing is going to happen if we can upregulate it without having to go through the months and years of inner work and training our minds. I certainly recommend that it should become a part of our lifestyle, but it does indeed take time and effort and cultivating and nurturing our inner well-being. But it's a must because, as I said, it makes our life living on every level much better. And it's not about getting to the goals in life, it's about enjoying every step of the journey, and that's the difference. But what if we can synchronize our brain waves to look as though we have that balance, to look as though our minds are in order? The body will naturally respond by upregulating the healing response. Now that is the technology I want to talk about. There is a gentleman who created a technology. It is so simple, yet it is so profoundly powerful. It does exactly, it taps into this innate healing intelligence that is encoded into our being. It taps into that so that it removes the resistance so that it can flow freely. Have you ever heard of anything like that? Until I discovered this, I've never heard of anything like that. And since I've been using it personally and with other people, I can tell you that in my 25 years of clinical experience, I've not come across anything that has this type of impact. Why? Because it's harnessing what is naturally resident within our human design. And so this gentleman, his name is Jay Dhaliwal. He is the founder of a company, a biotech company called Superpatch. And what he discovered and what he created, he recognized it was so impactful that he made this very bold statement that he's going to build something generational that will transform the world. But it has that transformative capacity because of what it's tapping into. And he didn't do it because he was looking to create a business or looking to create, he was already very, very wealthy and brilliant software engineer, but he was trying to find a solution for his mother's multiple sclerosis, a neurodegenerative problem to which there is no medical cure. And it took him 15 years of research development, working with the greatest minds, and spending $25 million of his own money over the years to come up with a solution as to get the brain to talk to the body. So that his mother, who was supposed to have been dead long ago, who is still alive today because of the discovery he made. This is a wonderful, so I want to share that technology with you. He's called it vibro-tactile trigger technology. This is about a 2-minute video of a demonstration to show how the technology works. Let's take a look at it.
Hi everyone, I'm Jay Dhaliwal. I'm the CEO and founder of Vox Life and the creator of Vox Life HPT. Today, I want to talk to you about a Harmony Neuro Patch. And what this product does is actually stimulates receptors on our skin, sending a neurosignal to our brain to help it reach homeostasis. This is the only product in the world that relies on the neurohaptic system that every single one of us has to optimize our neurology and optimize our health. Today, with the help of Dr. Mark DeBrinket, our VP of Clinical Strategy, we're going to be using an FDA-cleared 19-channel EEG headset, as well as FDA-cleared software to visualize, record, and show the impact that our technology has on our neurology and our brains to help it reach optimal performance. What we want to show today is how the Harmony Neuro Patch helps that dysregulated yellow, blue, and red colors in the brain maps transform into that healthy green homeostasis neurology that is the foundation of health and wellness. So what we're looking at right now is a neurological QEEG output of Mike's limbic system. The 19 channels are reading over 60,000 brainwaves a second and generating an output of neurofunction and brainwaves. What we want to see now is where that suboptimal red and yellow colors are. We want to see them turning as much as possible to a healthy green with the application of our HPT patch. So we've applied the patch now to Mike's arm, and within 10 seconds, you're seeing that predominant yellow and red become predominantly green. Just for clarification, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing in the world that has this output at this rate of speed without drugs, without chemicals, without electricity. That's the power of Vox HPT. So when we see a healthy green neurology, what we're looking at is a brain and a mind in homeostasis. It is operating in its optimal function. And this is so important. And this is why it's so important. So Vox Life HPT, as we demonstrated with our neuro patch, helps the central nervous system reach homeostasis in our neurology. And the reason this is so important for overall wellness and health is that neurology is the top of the pyramid of our physiological health and wellness paradigm. First is neurology at the very top, then there's chemistry, then there's biology, then there's physics and mechanics. Neurology will have an impact all the way through our entire physiology. Healthy neurology, healthy body, better wellness.
Well, let me just briefly say about what he just demonstrated. And if there's anyone who might be familiar with these brain scans, the EEG scans, you'll know that the red and yellow is always a relative to a restless and incoherent mind, and green is always a relative to coherence. And so imagine that you're just sticking a patch on your skin that has nothing in it, no chemicals, no ingredients, no frequencies on it, but yet it will create this type of coherence and harmony and balance to reflect a mind that is in order. How does that happen? Well, let me explain. It's based on technology that has afforded the people who discovered it to get Nobel Prizes, and it goes all the way back. And I'll tell you about that in a second. But just for us to understand that brainwaves is a reflection of the activity of the mind, that is well known. Now, when we understand the link between the brainwaves and the central nervous system, which is divided into those two sections, one negative, one positive, the brainwave activity influences the autonomic nervous system by signaling either sympathetic dominance or parasympathetic dominance, depending on what? The nature of those frequencies, meaning if it is negative, thoughts, emotions, etc., that are negative in their energetic quality, it shifts the brain waves, shifts the body into a sympathetic dominance. If it's harmonious and balancing, it shifts the brain wave, shifts the body into a parasympathetic dominance, and that's how it works. Now, this is almost mind blowing because this is an approach that the world has never seen this before. This is a relatively new technology, relatively new meaning it's been about a couple of years, just over 2 years that it was launched, but it's making such a global impact right now. But this is mind blowing. Imagine that. This is not pills, potions, or powders. This is tapping into and harnessing what already exists. The most optimal thing to heal your body, it already exists. Just taps into that. That, to me, is not only so exciting because it's life transformative, not just physiology. Because why? The brain processes everything that goes on in our physiology, but the brain also processes thoughts and emotions, our psychology. So when we start to bring our brain into homeostasis and balance, we're not just influencing better functioning in our body, we're also going to start to create better functioning in our minds. That is transformative. The Nobel Prize research goes back into the early 1900s when it was discovered that every cell in the human body transmits and receives electromagnetic frequencies. And then later on, these two Nobel Prize laureates discovered that there are receptors in the skin that everything that touches the skin sends a signal to the brain as an electrical signal to the brain because that is the language of the brain and the nervous system, electrical impulses. Anything that touches the skin will send that signal to the brain. What they have discovered is that these receptors, what they call piezo ion channels, they convert these vibrations, texture, temperature, into electrical signals, and they send those signals contain the information as to what it is that's touching the skin. But here's what Superpatch has discovered, and it works almost, you can think like a QR code. You know a QR code, if you took a camera and you scan this code, you can have different patterns, arrangements of different patterns. When you scan the code, it sends a signal and opens up whatever is relative to that pattern. It could be a document, it could be a website, it could be whatever the information according to the code. In a very similar way, Superpatch has discovered through the years of research and development that there are patterns that when it touches the skin, it sends a signal to the brain and integrates with the brainwave activity to harmonize it. What they have discovered that is proprietary to this company is what pattern can influence specific neural pathways that's relative to certain emotional or physiological function. That's what's proprietary to them, that they have discovered the patterns that's embedded on the patch. No chemicals, no drugs, no medicines, no substances. The skin, you can say the skin is like the camera that scans the pattern, sends the signal, and that signal relative to the pattern corresponds with a neural pathway that becomes synchronized and orderly. And that neural pathway is responsible for a certain physiological function or a certain psychological function. That's the simplicity, but it's also the safety of it, that there's nothing involved. So after 15 years of research and development, this has become now peer-reviewed, published research. It's published in prestigious medical and scientific journals, and now it's attracting attention from around the world. Last year, Superpatch Company was invited to present their groundbreaking technology to global symposiums, people who gather around the world to look at the future and the forward development of medicine, the World Congress of Psychiatry, the European Sleep Research Society, the World Congress of Pain, because no one has ever seen a technology that is so simple, so non-invasive, that has such impact. And it's now ushering in a new era of wellness. I join many of the other practitioners, physicians, and doctors who have tapped into this technology and who hold the opinion that this is not just a new era of wellness that is introducing, but this is going to be the future of that's going to change the approach to medicine. That you can actually influence it by tapping in to what innately exists inside our bodies. This is very powerful and it's very profound. This is unlocking that potential within. And it's clinically proven and tested. So when the mind and body are harmonized through brainwave synchronization, the mind becomes more orderly, biological systems become more coordinated, and this reestablishes homeostasis. What does that do? It optimizes the body's capacity to heal and repair. So far, the company has found 13 different patterns that connect with 13 different neural pathways to regulate certain things in our different things in our body and in our minds. Enhancements, regulation, balance, homeostasis. Right now, the company has in research and development some phenomenal things that's going on that they are so far ahead of the curve when it comes to where medicine is at in terms of what they're bringing to the table, and they're going to roll out over the next few years. This is absolutely amazing. Simply stick a patch onto your skin, and it just enhances that mind to body coordination, and it synchronizes that. And what happens? The body naturally begins to do what is innately built into it. These are mind-body solutions that everybody needs. This is what more and more people are looking for: drug-free, ingredient-free, things that are safe. They're researched, they're clinically proven. And it's not just physical well-being, it's physical and mental well-being. And they can address some of the most common needs that we have. They're FDA registered, not FDA approved because there are no substances or ingredients, but they're registered as safe, and they're very effective. Very effective in that they work quickly. You don't have to wait weeks, days, and months to use it for it to work into your system like you have to do with things that have to work with your chemistry. These are you get very results very quickly. How quickly? In minutes, in hours, and in days, depending on your situation. And so there's no contraindications for clinicians and practitioners when we're working with people that are on medication. No contraindications at all because there are no ingredients. They're completely safe. And it's easy to use. There's no particular time. You don't have to be doing it with meals. You don't have to. It's just patch and live. And they're so safe that children, even young children, toddlers, you can use it without having to worry about the safety of it. So mind-body harmony is the key to homeostasis that unlocks that potential that naturally resides within our human makeup. That was encoded inside of us. So when you look at suboptimal neurology, which happens through the stress response, that takes us on a spiral down. When we look at more optimal neurological function by having more harmonious balance in the way our brain is functioning by synchronizing that activity, here is the long game, and here is the beauty. Here is what I love most about these patches. While you may get quick responses in terms of how it affects your body, in terms of enhancing its functions, because the brain, through a phenomenon called neuroplasticity, where the brain rewires and reorganizes itself, when we begin to balance and organize brainwave activity to enhance, the brain begins to rewire itself to this new balance. And that's where the real magic begins to happen. As the brain begins to entrain itself to the new balance that the patches are synchronizing, you see not just greater improvements physiologically as time goes by, but mentality begins to change. And people are beginning to experience things that they've never experienced before in terms of their dispositions, even their attitudes, clarity of thinking, decision making. it just becomes clearer because a more orderly functioning mind. Some of the patches, I'm just going to run through them. These are some of the indications of the patches. This is the one that Jay demonstrated. This one, you can do a before and after test where you can see in a matter of seconds your balance, your stability, and your strength improves in a matter of seconds by 33%. Better range of motion. These they have such profound effect neurologically and physiologically and psychologically on the body. The Defend patch is one of my favorites. This thing is, I've never come across anything that upregulates the immune system faster and greater than the Defend patch. It supports a healthy immune system, enhances blood flow, faster recovery, and things like that. For pain, a 72 reduction in pain, 80% reduction in anti-inflammatory meds if you're on those type of things. 90% get pain relief within 20 minutes. People prefer the super patches over the counter medicines. This is one that's really beginning to do well, and I mean on a global scale. This here upregulates athletic performance. I can tell you personally, when I go into the gym and I put on this victory patch, you can clearly tell the difference in your workout, in your endurance, in your stamina, your strength, and your power. And this is not, again, this is not, I got to wear this for a period of time for it to work into my system to see the results. When you walk into the gym, you stick it on, and as soon as you start exercising, bam, it's there. It's no waiting. It works that quickly. These are phenomenal products. Energy, listen, the energy drinks, that the energy drink market is a huge market out there, but they are toxic to your brain and to your body. If you want good, clean energy on demand that is created from the engine on the inside, the Boost patch will do that for you. Sustainable energy, clarity. For those who want to get up those extra pounds and you're not able to get in as much activity, this will burn 25% more calories while you're at rest. That's the Ignite. The Lumi is a patch that's growing in popularity. I certainly love it. Healthier skin, better complexion. And people with various skin issues find that in using it, it helps to clear up things, but it's just generally for healthier skin. But because the intestinal lining is an extension of the skin, people that have gut lining issues or people that even may be constipated, this along with the Liberty Patch can work well in terms of helping to improve that. For us men, as we get older, we tend to have a decline in our masculine function. The Rocket really is a very good patch. It really works well in that department. Of all the pillars that constitute good physical wellness, the pillar that stands at the apex of all is sleep. And most people do not get REM sleep, where our body repairs, rejuvenates, and replenishes. The REM patch is an excellent patch that I used to think that I slept well until I started using this REM patch. One of my most favorite patch of all is the Peace patch. You feeling stressed, you're feeling overwhelmed, this will reduce stress and anxiety in a matter of moments for you. But more than that, why I love this patch is that consistent use of it over time, how it balances the autonomic nervous system, keeps your systems so well regulated. You want to enhance your focus, your concentration, your memory, your clarity of mind. Focus is a good patch. Joy, you're feeling in a low mood, maybe you're feeling a little bit depressed. Joy taps in to the neural pathways of your brain that are associated with spiritual potential. And so when you use these patches, even in combination, you're tapping into something that is extraordinary here. For people who have addictions, you're addicted to certain foods, you have a hard time breaking certain habits, even mental habits, because we want to be able to harness our minds. There are people that are addicted to overthinking, overanalyzing, people that are addicted to defaulting to negative thought patterns. This can even help in breaking those type of addictions as well. So when we understand that our brainwave activity is an expression of our inner state, which is what's governing not just physiology, but how we interact and interpret life and respond to life. So a brain in sync really is a body in balance, and when the brain rhythms flow harmoniously, the body systems resonate in accord. When we begin to combine these patches together, we start to create a resonance unlike anything that exists on this planet in terms of enhancing human physiology. This is nothing like this that exists on the planet. As Jay said, there's nothing in the world that really, and the thing is, you talk about something that's 100% natural. When I used to buy my nutraceuticals and stuff like that in the clinic, they say 100% natural, but there are things in there that it's not naturally in the human system. This is 100% natural because nothing goes into the body and it taps into the greatest healing potential on the planet, which resides within. Easy to use, so peel it off, stick it on. They pretty much can be stuck anywhere in your body. Each batch lasts for 24 hours. They've all been tested, undergone intensive research and real world testing by the Scientific Advisory Board. They work to make sure that the world real application is as it says, compliance, etc. They work along with the research and development team to make sure that we are sound in everything that we are doing. And so I want to invite you, as you consider your health as your life, and you want to begin engaging your life slash health at a higher level, consider Super Patch because it's going to enhance things in a way that nothing else can enhance it. No supplements will do it. This is really remarkable. These are advanced solutions. It is tailored by you, tailored for you by you, because it is your own innate intelligence that determines the application of how it's going to do its job on the inside. And we have thousands of testimonies on our Patch and Go Facebook page that you can read about. And so this combined with the inner work of taking charge of our lives, you want to engage the habits and the lifestyles to build a stronger life here. Clear mentality, emotional stability, a spiritually aligned life, socially connected, and financially empowered. If you are interested in engaging in this way of life, I want to invite you to consider looking at our growing global Super Patch community, engage in healthy lifestyles with financial empowerment. Because Super Patch, in their efforts, Jay's vision to build something generational that will change the world, he has developed a model, an economic model that is simply outstanding. And it's worth looking at. But if you have an interest, because financial empowerment is something that the world needs today. But you need to have it in such a way where you have control, where it's up to you, but it is scalable in such a way that it will bring the kind of financial security you need. If you're interested in looking, seeing beyond this technology to what Super Patch is offering individuals all over the world of how they can tap in to a resource that the company offers, a model, an economic model that is outstanding. If you're interested in that, I'm going to talk about that on Monday. But what I gave you this evening is some principles and a contextual framework of understanding of how this thing called disease eases into our bodies and creates from the inside out, and how we can engage a process. And Super Patch creates a bridge of how we can now work on the inner side, work on the inside, and bring that balance back. It helps where we're no longer going upstream, and it's no longer a fight to get our minds and our emotions into proper balance. Along with that, we can live this model right here, the wholeness of health, including the financial empowerment and becoming more socially connected in the Super Patch community. So if you're interested in that, on Monday evening at 6:30, we get together. You can contact me for the Zoom link if you're interested and wanted to hear about that. Or if you were invited on the call by someone else, maybe reach out to them and you can get the link of that call if you have an interest in hearing what that is all about. So, ladies and gentlemen, it was my pleasure. I enjoy sharing this information with people every week because I find I get such great value in seeing people's lives change. What I shared with you, now you can decide what it means for you and what you're going to do with it. And so, thank you very much for taking the time out of your Saturday evening and giving me the opportunity to share this with you. God bless all of you. Thank you very much. And as I said before, if you wanted to have a copy of the recording so you can go over the information again, you can just reach out and feel free to get a copy of it. So until maybe I'll see some of you on Monday. God bless you. Have a wonderful weekend.